Welcome into Beyond the Press Box. I'm Yash alongside me, my co-host and analyst, Zach Kyleman, Codey Emerson, and Will Hatzel. Get ready to hear great discussions and debates on the biggest storylines in sports. We cover topics ranging from the NFL, the NBA, MLB, college football, college basketball, and more. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the roundtable discussion between four friends who are passionate sports fans. Now, before we begin the show, we want to let you know through the Unhinged Sports Network, we've partnered with Fubo TV. What is Fubo TV, you may ask? Fubo TV brings you 100 plus channels, including ABC, ESPN, CBS, NBC, Fox, and many more without the hassle of a cable contract. Don't believe me? Hit the link in our social media bios and start your 7-day free trial today. So, guys, the MLB regular season is underway. Opening weekend happened this past weekend. A lot of good games. I think 4 of the 13 games on opening day actually went into extra innings. So a lot of good baseball happened over this past weekend, even. So I just want to get your overall thoughts on opening day and then opening weekend overall as well.
Just happy to have it back. And we're going to have a full regular season. I think that's something that's really nice to see is we're going to get, that true opening day. It felt like it was a true opening day experience, of course, with the parameters need be, but I'm happy that at least that we're going to get the full season here. As a Cubs fan, it was just nice to get that early April start that we always have too. And at least for the Cubs perspective, at least somewhat of a hot start, nothing too crazy to go over, but again, just happy opening day. As some of our other colleagues have mentioned outside of this show, it should be a national holiday. I would argue, at some point with how Americana baseball is, yeah, why not? But overall, I mean, if you're talking competitiveness and such, again, early baseball season, you can kind of have with a grain of salt on what you can compare or contrast from teams. But overall, just compared to last year, it's just happy to see we're going to have 162 games again, a full MLB season, potentially steps towards people going back to games fully, as some of the Texas Rangers fans have noticed, if you guys understand what I'm saying. But, just happy to have it back.
Yeah, I think baseball is really the beginning of it is really that first true feeling of, hey, summer's on its way back. We all live in the Midwest here, so we always deal with snow and what winter brings us. So it's always nice to know that it's kind of that transition period where it's like, hey, baseball's back. That means, we're in springtime, summer's around the corner. The weather's actually been beautiful. I'm going fishing for the first time tomorrow. It has nothing to do with baseball, but I'm just excited. It's going to be 80 degrees in Northwest Indiana. So it overall makes you feel better. And really, I think just knowing it's going to be, at least hopefully it should be a normal baseball season. I know we were grateful to get whatever we could get last year, but 60 games is just not enough for baseball, even though I know we could sit here and say, well, 162 is a lot, but to get the true experience, you're used to, we're getting that back. And, despite COVID messing with the Washington Nationals, for the most part, it went on without a hitch. So, very excited to see it back. I mean, you're seeing fans back in the stadiums too. Now it's making me tempted to maybe get some tickets if I can afford them and go to a game either on the north or south side here in Chicago, see one of the teams. But it's just kind of another thing where you just another step of feeling normalcy again, where you got not only a full season, you have fans coming back. It is a lot of fun, and I mean the games. I thought they were pretty entertaining to start with. There were already a handful of games that went to extra innings. We saw some memorable plays. I think we talked about this as we were prepping for the show today. There's some articles and some people out there that are already hitting the panic button way too early. It's Reaction Monday for some reason when we've literally only seen like 3 games played for these teams. So I don't think you have to panic just yet if you are a fan of a team that's projected to contend this year and they're not looking so good just yet. I mean, it's only been a couple of games. So, but that just goes to show you how excited people are that baseball's back. They're ready to go. And, even though we're freaking out about every game mattering, it's just nice. It's a nice overall feeling. Very excited, despite my football stuff in the background here. You could see if you're watching on video, I believe it or not, I am a baseball fan. I got my Cubs stuff actually in front of me, behind the camera, ironically enough. So, but happy it's back.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm one of those people that think opening day should be a national holiday. I know a lot of baseball fans have we kind of treat it that way anyway. But I would be totally down for it being a national holiday and people just having off work, going to the ballpark, or yeah, you mentioned Zach, maybe to full capacity, like what the Rangers are doing right now down in Texas. They say everything's bigger in Texas, and I guess they're living up to their name. But it felt good. Despite I'll get into my personal the Atlanta Braves got swept, but I'll get into that in just here in a little bit. But just the games overall, I think were very competitive for the most part. We didn't have too many blowouts. I mean, guys, one of the first games that we saw was, I believe, I have it pulled up right here. Where's the Rangers and come on, I had it pulled up. Yeah, the Rangers and Royals on opening day combined to score 24 runs and 30 hits combined. So we had ourselves quite a slugfest on opening day. And it just to get to see some of the, the big time players again. I mean, I'll use this for an example. Look at what Shohei Ohtani did last night. He, in the first inning, threw a pitch 101 miles an hour, and then proceeded in the bottom half of the inning to hit a home run 450 feet. He's one of those exciting players, that hopefully can stay healthy, and he's right up there with his teammate Mike Trout as could arguably be the most exciting duo in baseball to watch this year. I know the San Diego Padres will have something to say about that, the Dodgers as well. But overall, I think it was pretty good, successful weekend. I will have to crack a joke here. I think the Houston Astros brought out the trash cans because I think their offense, they came alive a little bit, and they're 4-0. I have to make that joke. They scored, I think, 7-8 runs plus in all 4 of their games. So that I just saw that stat when I was scrolling through social media the other day, and I was like, they decided to bring back out the trash cans after having such a down year last year. So and it's stuff like that I love to do. We're allowed to crack jokes at teams. We're allowed to have our fun and also just watch the entire game. Baseball's my favorite sport. I grew up going to games. Hopefully I can maybe go to a few this year. We'll see how, difficult, me being a Braves fan and living up here in Indiana, but we'll see how that goes, but it just great to have the sport back. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So like you said, Will, those teams panicking or those fans panicking, just for the love of God, we've seen 3-4 games. Stop. I don't buy stock into the first, I'd say even month and a half of baseball. Once we start getting into the dog days of summer, that's when I really start to grind up and pay attention to, okay, this team's on a big time win streak. They're in first right now, or this team's surprising me, or what's going on with this team? So, but we don't need that after 3 to 4 games. So let's just enjoy the baseball's back, and we're in for a great 162 game full season.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. With you guys. I'm excited to have baseball back and kind of have that sense of normalcy again, having that 162 game season started up, especially after what happened last year and what we've been through over this past year. Also nice to see these games, a lot of these games being played. The Nationals, the only team I think that was affected by COVID through opening weekend.
Yeah.
So really nice to see baseball and Major League Baseball, who we know who last year had a struggle with COVID, being able to get these games in and being able to to play all these games in on opening day and opening weekend. And I know Cody, you'll touch on the Nats a little bit as your Braves. They'll play the Nationals starting tomorrow. I think that series on
A
Tuesday.
doubleheader. Yep, they were scheduled to play
Doubleheader because they
today.
had to
Actually,
reschedule it
yep.
because of the COVID issues
Yeah.
with Washington. But Will, your Cubs, man, they're starting off season 2-1. They won that series against the Pirates there, and you know, just like I said, just excited to see baseball back. Excited to see these some of these scores, especially in opening weekend and on opening day. Really high scoring, high octane games that they had. Interesting games. But yeah, like Cody mentioned and like Will you mentioned, I don't think there's really a reason to panic if your team isn't really doing that well. Because you guys have all said it. The first month, 2 months of baseball really don't mean much when it comes to the playoff race and the hunt for October there. So, but I mentioned the Cubs there, Will, and your Cubs. They are 2-1. They took that series against the Pirates, but now they'll face Milwaukee. And what kind of stands out to you most about this upcoming series with the Brewers?
Well, I was pretty impressed with the way the starting pitching went for the Cubs in the first series here. I mean, minus Kyle Hendricks in the first game, kind of a sluggish outing. I mean, 3 innings pitched, not great. I mean, you hope your starting pitcher could go, 5 or 6 innings at least. But the following 2 games, Jake Arrieta went 6 innings. Zach Davies went like 5 1/3. I think he almost made it to 6. He started showing a little bit of wear and tear, so they pulled him at the correct time. But the offense, it's always the same thing with the Cubs, where it's you look at the lineup, you look at the roster on piece of paper, and it's like, wow, yes, you should see a lot of offense here. They were able to score runs and capitalize in a couple unique ways. Ironically enough, in a lot of those situations where it's like a sacrifice fly, where the guy, somebody like Jock Peterson, he's got 2 RBIs on the season, yet he's like, I think he's 0 for 10, but he's got 2 RBIs. It's a couple weird situations like that where they're advancing the runners, they're driving in some runs, just not a good enough of a hit to stay on base. So, got to be careful. Some of those stats can be a little bit misleading, but I'm curious to see if they can continue to get more guys involved. Javi Baez has been striking out, but has also brought a couple of guys home. Um, Chris Bryant is off to a really good start. I think he's hitting 333 to start the year. Rizzo 250. Ian Happ does have a home run so far. So does Jason Hayward. So it's kind of a nice combination of a little bit of power in the bats and also just something that's plagued the Cubs for many years now, a handful of years, ever since winning the World Series, essentially, is just bringing in runners that are in scoring position. Having too many guys have been left on base, too many opportunities where there's somebody on second and third or one of the two, and you don't bring them home. So if you're pitching, if Zach Davies is going to go 5 or 6 innings or Jake Arrieta is going to go 5 or 6 innings, then you should be able to get capitalize on some solid pitching by getting some runs. And even I was watching the game yesterday, it was 4-0 within the first couple of innings, a great offensive start for the Cubs. And then all of a sudden they just petered out. And then Zach Davies, as his arm was getting tired, he started giving in a little bit. Then they obviously went to the bullpen. So I want to see the offense be a little bit more consistent. Again, when you're facing a guy like Christian Yelich, that guy could belt a home run whenever. I'm sure Christian Yelich is going to bounce back this year and probably be a consistent hitter again. So there's the Brewers are going to be competitive this year. And again, I know we keep talking about this early on in the season. You can't, determine if a team is good or not just yet. But Milwaukee is going to be one of those teams this year where they're going to be competitive, but you just don't know how good they're going to be. And this is a series, even though it's early and you got to work out the kinks. I'd really like to see the Cubs find a way to win this series too and take 2 games from Milwaukee, because I think the Cubs, their starting rotation, and in terms of at least the names on their offensive lineup sheet, is a little bit better than what the Brewers have outside of Yelich. I mean, I'm curious to see who's going to step up for them. So, going into this series against Milwaukee, I think I want to see how the rest of the back end of the starting rotation could do here. I want to see if the bullpen could be a little bit stronger. Every year, the Cubs have a new bullpen every year. Like nobody's ever the same, it seems like. So I really am curious to see, will anybody make a name for themselves this year? And Craig Kimbrell actually has been pretty solid. I think he struck out 5 out of 6 batters he's faced in a couple of situations already on the mound near the end of the game. So things are looking good. And I know it's only been 3 games, but I want to see if the offense could continue to build off of what they've done, and can the starting pitching get you 5 or 6 quality innings, and then can this new look bullpen uh hold the lead if that's what they get, or just not fall apart like we've seen in years past. So it's more of, I still have more questions, and really because Milwaukee's a better team than Pittsburgh, so this should be more of a challenging series. So a couple more questions to be answered, but I think the blueprint, the foundation of what this team is built on in 3 games is pretty good. Now just keep working on that, and we'll see a couple of pitchers that haven't been out there just yet, so we'll see what happens. But I'm feeling good about the Cubs so far. It should be a good series, and I think they have a chance to win this series against Milwaukee.
Zach, I know
Well, I think
you're a big fan of your Cubbies. So, what are your thoughts on Chicago start?
Oh, I was going to comment on the Cubs. It's the main baseball team, really the one that I keep up with the most. I know Will's the kind of the one guy that keeps up with the crosstown rivalry in the same, and I appreciate that. I'm going to be honest though, I am a Cubbies guy. I mean, for crying out loud, if you guys are watching the video, I showed up with my gnome, which I've had for well over a decade now. I would say it was a Christmas gift, not joking.
I
But just to
remember
show you.
I remember when this was we were doing this with WCRD, Zach. The Cubs won the World Series. You had that gnome in the studio with you
Yes,
when we
I
were
did.
recording. I remember that way back when.
Yes, and to clarify for those listening to the regular version, yes, this is a garden gnome with a Cubs logo on the hat. So for you, so those aren't confused what in the hell I'm talking about. But no, I'm a Cubs guy. So the early season takes I've had is the typical struggles with the batting rotation, and it's always seeming to come up ever since at least post World Series with the Joe Madden era, and now moving into, of course, with David Ross into year 2. It's consistently a problem still. And you got to give credit for the Cubs pitching rotation. We were wondering, hey, can it hold up? Can Jake Arrieta 35, throw a pretty solid game? What are we going to expect from Zach Davies here with Yu Darvish moving on, of course, too? And so far, so good. I was very much humbly impressed with Zach Davies. Jake Arrieta in particular, I was like, yes, this is what I wanted. If you're getting him for a year and you're going to put him in the starting rotation like this, you can hope that at best he can go those 6 innings again and at least give you a solid amount of production and at least pitching that you can bring some offense in. And then the other question I had is, per usual, as Will and I both know, is the offense going to finally hit its stride, the on paper stride? The Cubs are an on paper team. It seems like most of the past decade, all the pieces are there. This should be pretty simple for this to be a winning team without any struggles at the plate. And the last 2 years in particular, it's been missing the mark with your top guys. In particular, I would say Chris Bryant has been one of those guys that's really been having the finger pointed at him. But hot start from Chris Bryant really makes me happy. Jason Hayward's taken steps at his batting presence every year he's been with Chicago. So again, he's had a solid start. Ian Happ, who I think is a key piece to the Cubs taking a farther step than last year, and one that I think, at least in terms of the Cubs batting rotation, that is one that should look to improve, if not become a star, I think, for the Cubs, did at least make some production in this series against the Pittsburgh Pirates. Now the Pirates are one of if not the weakest team in the NL Central. So take it as you will for the Cubs, at least winning that series 2-3. Pretty disappointed in Kyle Hendricks, to say the least. I mean, I know Hendricks is known for having those off games, but considering that, again, this is your first time at the plate, and I was more impressed with at least Arrieta coming back in at an older age. I was expecting more from Hendricks to start the season. Again, it's early, but 3 innings from Kyle Hendricks to me, and you're supposed to be, now you're the ace. You are considered the ace of this rotation. that doesn't look good, and honestly, that needs to hopefully be addressed. Again, the Cubs have been known since 2014, actually, to at least lose their first 2 games. This is the first year since then that they have actually not lost 2 in a row going into the start of the year. So positive improvements, perhaps. But as we all have mentioned, even in earlier shows before, the early season doesn't matter too much. The Cubs have a very difficult July coming up, so they need to get through these first few months before they really hit a bunch of the bumps and potholes in the road they can get. And the Brewers series coming up will definitely be a placement test for where the Cubs stand in the Central, because right now, looking at the Central again, the St. Louis Cardinals made a lot of movements in the offseason. The Brewers, they're expected to make a rebound this year. Brewers are the first test, in my opinion. Let's see how they do, especially now that they're going to be taking a series with the back half of both their starting rotations. I'm going to be looking towards this one with a lot of anticipation.
Yeah, I mean, the Cubs, they really have a wealth of talent on that roster. You mentioned Will Baez, Javier Baez, Zach. You mentioned the growth of Chris Bryant, who last year I actually got to, or 2 years ago, I actually got to interview him for my internship that I had with our local TV station here in Knoxville, because he was down with the Tennessee Smokies. He got sent down to their affiliate down here. So I actually I didn't get to hang out with him, but I got to interview him for a segment that we did for the Smokies. So that training with the Smokies helped. He's been he's been playing solid this year, and and like I said, there's a plethora of talent on that roster, and you hit it there. July, looking at that schedule, be a tough month for Chicago, but if they can, like you said, if they can make it through this first couple of April, May, and June, they'll be just fine heading into that stretch and moving forward. But it's you talk about teams that have we talked about not panicking, with early losses and early failures, but the Atlanta Braves, they started off their season 0-3 in the Philadelphia. They got swept by the Philadelphia Phillies. So, Cody, I just want to get your thoughts on what did you make of the Philadelphia series overall, and then looking ahead, what kind of adjustments do you see the Braves making against the Nationals? That series starting, like we mentioned, on Tuesday at 4:05 Eastern, I believe, is when that series starts.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Braves got swept. How it's like, but you actually dive deeper into the box scores and actually digest each game. The first one, opening day, you talked about at the top, one of those games that went into extra innings. The Braves and Phillies was one of them. The Braves got a pitch hit 2-run home run from the most unlikely of candidates. If you were to tell me that of all the people on our roster, that Pablo Sandoval would be the one who hits a game-tying pitch hit 2-run home, or a game-tying home run, I would not believe you. I would think you're on some sort of drugs but that's what happened. The Braves offense in that first game was, and that's kind of basically the theme for the series, that they scored basically just, the offense was non-existent. The Braves lost to the Phillies 3-2, 4-0, and 2-1. So if you do have a cause for concern a little bit, it's the offense, which, by the way, this offense scored the second most runs in the National League last year. So I'm confident that they'll get this figured out. I mean, when you have an MVP in Freddie Freeman, when you have Ozuna, Ronald Acuna Jr., Dansby Swanson, I'm confident that this offense will get it figured out. I mean, and so also, like I just said, you look at the scores, 3-2, 4-0, and 2-1. They didn't get blown out in any of those games. So I think you just look at it, say, it is what it is. And little fun fact, I'm the one doing the first fun fact today. The Braves got swept 2 years ago by the Phillies in the first 3 games and went on to win 97 games on their way to winning the National League East in dominating fashion. So I'm not concerned at all. I mean, you look at these games, the Braves are still without Mike Soroka as he's recovering from the Achilles injury he had last year. So that thrust Max Fried into the starting role on opening day. And he got into a jam basically almost in every inning, or had trouble almost every inning. But you look at his stat line, 5 innings, 6 hits, only 2 earned runs, struck out 8. That's a solid performance. I'll take that. Then moving on to Charlie Morton's second or game 2 start, another 5-inning performance, 3 earned runs, which was that he had 1 bad inning, struck out 5. And then you look at Ian Anderson, another 5 innings pitched, only allowed 1 earned run and struck out 7. And the 1 earned run he allowed was a solo home run in the 2nd inning. So the pitching is there. The starting pitching, the bullpen pitched fairly well. I'm confident that the starter or that the offense will start to click. I mean, there's no need to make lineup changes. That just now, if we're sitting here next week and the Braves got swept by the Nationals, I'll start to maybe worry a little bit if the offense continues to not produce as like at high level as we're used to seeing. But speaking of that national series, like you mentioned, Yash, the Nationals are battling COVID, so they haven't actually played yet. So we are going to get to see the Washington Nationals, and them not playing a game means we get to see the lovely face that is Max Scherzer. I'm not looking forward to that. That means their players are healthy. They're, I guess, well rested. Juan Soto and Ronald Acuna Jr., that is going to be a fun matchup, not just for this series, for the next decade in the National League East. Ronald edged him out for Rookie of the Year that year. So in terms of the National Series, I expect the Braves to get back on track. They're going to be interesting with Mike Soroka in recovering from his Achilles, which he should. Alex Anthopoulos, our president of baseball operations, basically said look to like late April for him to make his season debut. So that's enticing, coming off a torn Achilles. So the Braves are kind of going with a 4-man rotation right now with, their Drew Smiley. One of our free agent signings is going to get the start in our first game. Then we're kind of going to use the second game as a bullpen game. So kind of a long relief type thing, maybe. I'm going to butcher his name. I know it. Huskar Iona, I believe is how you maybe say it. I probably butchered the crap out of it, but he'll get the start. And will be interesting to kind of see how far he goes. But then we'll obviously turn the ball in the final game of the series to Max Fried. Again, it's a doubleheader tomorrow on Tuesday, so kind of be interesting to see how they manage the lineups and whatnot with it being a doubleheader. But looking for the Braves to get back on track. Hopefully, maybe just that one win. If they get that one win, or that, even if it's in a loss and the offense kind of finds their rhythm and whatnot, they can maybe get back on track. But at the very end of the day, like we've continued to mention, I'm not buying stock into the first month and a half. If this team is still trying to find its footing, I'd be okay with that. But if, like we continue to talk about, if we're having these problems, if the offense is consistently struggling to score runs in July, then you can come to me and we can have a maybe serious talk. But I think they're fine right now. Just some early season jitters is probably all.
And the Nationals, they're going to be. You mentioned the COVID there. We've been mentioning the Nationals battling COVID. They're going to be without 5 starters in the game tomorrow. So
Yeah, so I mean
uh,
that's going to be an interesting thing.
yeah,
I don't think they've released any names. I haven't seen any names. Um, I hope for everything to go off as I want to. If you want to beat a team, you want to beat them when they're at their best. Obviously,
yeah.
Scherzer is scheduled to start, and then uh, oh, excuse me, Max. I was looking at our schedule. No, Tuesday. Yeah. So that'd be tomorrow. We have Drew Smiley going. Max Fried is actually going in the first game of the doubleheader, and then it's to be determined. So Max Fried actually going to be not Husker Iona, so he's going to be pitching on very short rest. So will be interesting to see how he does off that. So it'll be interesting.
Well, yeah.
You don't see a doubleheader usually in the first, week of baseball, but hey, at least baseball is making these games up early, so it'll be fun. And no need to panic because of the offense. And I mean, they'll be fine. Brian Snitker will get this team going in the right direction. I have full confidence in that.
Yeah, let's. Well, I hope the Braves are able to get back on track. I know they'll get back on track against this Washington Nationals team overall. So, but speaking of the Braves, I know there's a connection there, and I want to get your thoughts before we just kind of a follow-up question. The Braves brought back Carl Edwards Jr. As a relief pitcher. And then they brought back Jesse Biddle. Carl Edwards Jr. also the Cubs connection there, played for the Cubs. But
Triggered.
I want to get your thoughts on what do you make of the Braves bringing back those 2 relief pitchers in their bullpen?
Well, Jesse Biddle's been at the major league level for us before. So, I mean, if you bring back a familiar face, the bullpen is a little tight right now, but like I said, with not having Mike Soroka, you can maybe use an extra arm in that bullpen. Carl Edwards Jr., from what I saw and what I was looking up, had himself a nice spring, but maybe there just wasn't room on the roster for him, so they both signed minor league contracts. So you know what? I mean, Gwinnett can always kind of it'll be interesting. I think they'll definitely get some appearances down there, and if either one of them makes a good impression, maybe we can, or if an injury happens or whatever to one of our relievers. I know Chris Martin, one of our relievers, just went down, so maybe that was why we signed both of them. So always nice to have depth. That you can't complain about that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Always good to have depth on the roster, especially in the bullpen. In for teams overall. And so, but also another Brave story. I know you were Cody. You were talking to me earlier in the week. The Braves went into extra innings in that opening day game, and so I was actually going through and Dan Perry, I think is how you say his name. He spells it Dayn. I think it's Dan, but Dan Perry of CBS Sports, he brought up the idea of the MLB using ties in the regular season, kind of cutting out this extra innings rule, especially because he was mentioning that it basically elongates the game. He kind of gets rid of the 14, 15, 16, however many long innings, extra innings, those games go on. And so I just want to get your thoughts on this. Kind of, do you agree with Dan's assessment? Do you think the MLB should get rid of this rule, or do you think they should continue with including extra innings in the regular season?
I am not a fan of ties in any sport, to be very honest with you. Even in soccer, sometimes I don't understand why they have ties, unless it's like a championship game, like a final or something where they will go to like a shootout eventually. I think in every sport you can find a way to have an overtime period. Now with baseball and soccer are probably the trickiest because a soccer game could go on for another 2 hours before somebody scores. I mean, for God's sakes, there's games that are 0-0. In baseball, you usually don't have like that much of a scoring drought in a game in any game alone. I like the idea of implementing a runner on second base. I mean, a couple of the games that this is another thing I think is a little bit. I think this article is also an overreaction Monday type of thing because in the guy's sub headline he says 2021 opening day saw 4 games go to extras and start the 10th inning with a runner on second base. Okay, 4 out of 13 games. Okay, just because it's opening day and a couple of games just so happen to go to extra innings. I don't really think it's anything to panic about so early. The Blue Jays beat the Yankees in 10, scored that automatic runner on second base. The Brewers won on a walk-off fielder's choice, automatic runner scored. Um, the Phillies won, as we know, that was from the automatic runner scoring. And the only weird one was in Seattle, the Giants reliever Jose Alvarez walked 3 straight batters, which forced the runner on second to come home. That one was kind of unique. I had to bring that up. Imagine walking 3 guys. Imagine going to extras and losing on that. I could understand some frustration there, but no, I think why I just read those. I think these are examples that kind of counter this guy's article and argument that you don't really need a tie because you could place a runner on second or third, and the odds are, again, we know you could score on a sacrifice fly, different things like that. You can It's way more easier to score with a runner on second or third than starting with nobody on base, I think, because anything could happen really,
Yeah.
even walking 3 straight guys. So ultimately, I'm not a fan of ties. And especially with a 162 game season, I think you're going to get real complicated with trying to tally wins, losses, and ties and tiebreakers and stuff. It confuses me in even a simple sport like football, where I know it's 17 games now, but a 16 game season in the NFL. And anytime there's a tie, or when you get to trying to, rank who gets into a playoff spot, we saw that this year in the NFC, like how it came down to, well, since the Bears beat this team has to lose in order for the Bears to make it. It gets way too complicated, and I think it would in baseball too, with again 162 games, and now you're dividing those games into 3 different results. We haven't I Again, I don't have the data off my hand, but I don't think there's been that many games that have gone 18, 19, 20 innings anymore ever since they implemented the automatic runner on second. If you really want to speed a game up, maybe try putting the runner on third, because again, the odds are you're going to score with that guy in position, but a runner on third with no outs to start that inning. I don't think it's I'm all for having extra innings and not going 15, 16, 17 innings. I also don't like what that does to a team's bullpen. That ruins a team's pitching staff for like an entire week before they could bounce back, especially if you're a Cubs fan. And back in the day with Joe Madden, they'd go through the entire pitching staff in one of those outings if they went to extra innings. So I'm not a fan of ties. I think I would stick with this automatic runner rule still in place. Again, opening day alone in all of those games, the teams won off of that runner in the 10th inning. So, um, if you really want to speed it up, maybe try putting the guy on third, but I think it's fine the way it is.
Yeah, Dan, he says in here, the MLB should ditch the automatic runner and negotiate a new rule with the players that says, if a game remains deadlocked after 12 innings, it shall be a tie in the standings. So, I mean, I don't know. I find that interesting though, Will. You mentioned putting the runner on third, the automatic runner on third instead of second, but
Absolutely not. There should not be ties in baseball. I'm a bit of a blue blood. I grew up on baseball. I guess I'm with the old school mind of thought, where you play till there's a winner. I don't like the fact that they have a runner on second, because that's just unfair to the pitcher, I think, because a single up the middle could bring a guy home. And you're now, I'll say this. I know we we talked about this, I think, when our podcast was first starting about how baseball was going to implement this runner on second rule. And I said I wasn't a fan of it then. I haven't changed my opinion on that. I say the only thing I'd be maybe okay with is say that the game goes to the 12th, maybe 13th inning. That's when I'd be okay with maybe I'd put a runner on first. I wouldn't put a runner on second because a runner on second, nobody out, the pitcher can do everything right and have 2 outs and a runner can still score. Because say you bunt the guy over to third and then the next guy hits a sac fly, okay, the pitcher's done his job. He's gotten 2 outs, yet a run still scores. I really don't see how you should punish the pitcher for that. So I'm going to be honest. I think I'm in the minority here. I probably am. Of baseball fans, I like games that go 18, 19 innings. I really do. I like the strategy that's being implemented because you have to, as managers, you really get to see what their strategy's like. Oh, am I gonna let this guy stay out here and, compromise his arm for the next few days? This is why we have a ton of bullpen guys, and that's why you have tons of guys down in the minor leagues who you can call up if a guy gets hurt or something. It's not like there's a limited amount of guys. So I just like the strategy that's implemented in, like 18. And first of all, I'll say we rarely have those games. Especially with this runner on second rule, we'll never get to, I highly doubt, although I'd be up for it, I don't think we'll ever get to a 17, 18, 19 inning game. But I say if we did, that I'm not going to complain because I just like, the overall strategy. Before we implemented this rule, like I said, the strategy that was used, substitutions, you only have a limited number. When are you going to use them? You only have a limited number of pitchers. When are you going to use them? Guys, and also, I like to see position players pitch. I think it's kind of one of the best things about those lengthy games is, hey, if a player off your bench, if you use up your bullpen, you have to maybe use a position guy, and that can kind of get some quirky and fun things. And I think it makes for good memes when he strikes out a guy too. But so at the very end of the day, no, there should not be ties. There shouldn't be a runner on second. Granted, both teams have an equal chance to score, but with this new runner on second rule, but still at the very end of the day, like I said, I'm old school. Give me a good old fashioned, bases empty. You have to actually earn your way on base and earn your way to scoring instead of just, here's a gift at second base.
Yeah, I see that point, and this is a consistent discussion that has been going on, the old school versus the new school. What does baseball do? Traditionalists versus innovation and moving into the modern era of sports in particular. And this whole thing, since it's been brought up, has mostly been about the viewership talks. How long do you let a baseball game go for? How much are you going to sacrifice if you're trying to get new fans in by having them watch a longer game? And again, Cody's right. 18, 19 inning games, they're very rare. So I get that. But it pains me to say it, but I'm from a past generation, technically. Newer generations, it's been proven, are less of attention span when it comes to sports, or they're not sports fans in general. So, to me, it stinks if it's in the case of not just letting pitchers deal with having a clean slate, but for baseball's sake, I almost feel like it makes sense why they're doing this, and I've been fine with it. And only because, again, if both pitchers have the same pressure added on, it's fine. I think of it too as also any other sport with OT, where OT technically is kind of a time crunch. It's a bit more of the, oh my gosh, we're who's going to outlast who. This is it's definitely the final moments, if you will. And, baseball, of course, has, in theory, unlimited endings. But, I mean, to be honest with you, if we're talking viewership, and this is why I'm coming from this stance, that's hard for me to sell in a modern era for sports. As much as, I agree with traditionalists in the case, let the game play out. I find that hard to completely say. But I'm fine with this rule, going to be honest with you. In a in a setting that it would be to be practical, I actually wish that somehow baseball could actually adapt like an NHL style of point setting. Honestly, where say like extra innings, you add like maybe less or more points depending on how it goes. That'd be a little more complex. But honestly, I like how the NHL does it. That's just my opinion. And considering that, when you have the NHL, NBA, MLB that all play 80 plus games, and when the MLB is kind of like in the NHL where you can have an extra and then you have even more OT with the shootout, in a Fantasyland world, I wish the MLB could do that. But in reality, I think that adding the second base runner is kind of your best bet. But again, I'm also, like I said, I'm coming from, how TV is evolving, how we're evolving as viewing media. And, that's kind of why this was implemented, and so it's just something that I'm, for the most part, I'm all right with, because both pitchers have to deal with the same thing, and all it does is it makes the conclusion a little bit faster and you avoid a tie.
Can I make a rebuttal real quick to your point?
Yeah, I was waiting for it, actually. I saw you ready.
Yeah, I was something I was just thinking about. I mean, longer games, yeah, you have your bench players and a majority of them come in longer games. But as a fan, wouldn't you want to see more at bats from, say, a Mike Trout, just a superstar player on said team? That's the argument that I use, is because I want to see Mike Trout come up in the seventh. Like we said, it rarely gets to the 17th, 18th, 19th, but in the 14th, 15th inning with a runner on second, 2 outs, I want to see Mike Trout. I want to see the stars under pressure in that situation, and like I say, a walk-off scenario. So I just think the longer a game goes, potentially, the more chances a fan would get to see, one, their favorite player, maybe, two, a superstar in a clutch moment or whatever. That's just kind of a thinking that I had while you were making a point there.
I do have one rebuttal. It's not necessarily against any of your guys' points. I think it's more towards a different group of people that are really against having that runner on. And maybe one of you guys brought it up too, but I'm okay with there being a runner on, because I think it's more fair to try the quick in a game and technically give both. Well, actually, let me double check this. If at the top of the 10th, if that runner scores, is the game over, or does the other team get a chance?
The other team gets a chance.
Okay, so if you still have a chance, if you allow a run and you still have a chance in the bottom of the 10th, I think that's fair game. It's in an effort to give everybody a chance to score and get it done a little bit, in a quicker fashion. I'm not a fan. I will say, and I guess maybe this is where I rebuttal a little bit with Cody. I'm just not a fan of going through 10 different pitchers, and I'm not really a fan of going through, it's as entertaining as it is to throw out a first baseman or a shortstop or an outfielder. If people want to complain about a runner on second being unfair, I think it's more unfair they have to get to that point to where a team, especially, again, it may not even happen with both teams right away. It could just be, again, a Joe Madden-esque thing back in his days with the Cubs, where he blows through his pitching staff, and then it's, oh, real great. We're still in this game, but Anthony Rizzo's got to go pitch, and we love Anthony Rizzo, and it'd be hilarious to see him pitch. The odds are they're going to light him up at some point. He's not a pitcher. He's not going to throw in any fashion that's going to really, stifle a Mike Trout or, one of the best hitters in the league, depending on who you're playing. So I think the system's fine the way it is. I think it's fair that each team gets an opportunity, and I don't even like the idea of, if it goes if it gets to the 12th inning, then call it a tie. It's just, it's way too complicated. I've never understood why sports want to have ties. Again, you have to implement like a point system then, and it's just not. I'm not all about that. I truly think it's fair the way it is right now.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and that's kind of what I was gonna bring. Zach brought it up, kind of brought it to my mind with the point system of the NHL, the way the NHL does it. That's kind of what I was gonna bring up to you, William. You're our resident NHL expert. Kind of, do you think the MLB should adopt that style of system?
What even I please explain it to me because I'm not an NHL person at all. So I
Well,
don't even know what the
I'll let him
system
say
is.
because I have a fun solution that probably is impractical, but still I'd love to see it.
I mean, the way the NHL has it set up is if you lose in overtime or a shootout, you still get 1 point. Every win counts as 2 points into the standings, into their point system. 1 point if you lose in a shootout or overtime, which I I don't. I think it works okay in hockey. I mean, it's if they changed it, I wouldn't really argue about it either. But but that's what keeps there from being any ties is that, and also instead of doing like a full 20-minute period of hockey for overtime, they play 5 minutes. It's 3-on-3. It's not even 5-on-5. Usually the games get done. You don't see shootouts as often as you used to. So that's, I guess, is shootouts are entertaining, but again, you're getting the games done quicker. Um, Again, how would that translate into the MLB? I think it's their their version of the NHL's 3-on-3 is essentially just putting a runner on second base to start with. So I think it's they already have that in place. But I just don't believe in ties. And the NHL has a point system that works, which they could technically even get rid of that point system. Realistically, the more wins you have, the more points you have, the higher you're going to be in the standing. It's actually very it's not complicated at all. Why you get a point in a tie, I think it's a little bit of charity, I guess, with the way it's set up. But the NHL, I don't think, or the MLB doesn't need a point system. I truly think just keep it the way it is.
No, I mean it really doesn't. I just mainly first was equating the NHL because I actually do like the point system because of the fact that you do get some sort of credit for pushing a team farther past just the regulation. But hear me out. This, and by the way, for any traditionalists listening or watching, you can just scoff at me instantly because I know this would never fly whatsoever.
I'll
But
do it right now.
here you go. Ready? Here we go, Cody. Picture this. You say you get into the extra innings. You go maybe we'll give them 2 innings just to be fair. So we'll go to the 11th. All right. So you get 2 innings, and then this is where you're gonna hate me for this: a home run derby for deciding, kind of like a shootout in the NHL, where you just do like a softball pitch, and you get one team, they pick their best batter, put that out there. Next one, this one. Whoever gets the most home runs at the end wins. And you see, I was waiting just to get your
what's
reaction.
funny? I thought about that too,
leave
actually. Cody is done with us.
Is this podcast over?
And again, no realistic way this would actually happen. But if I would ever see us, I'd be like, "Ooh, I can't wait to watch this game tonight." We'll just tune in just for the home run derby section.
I'm done.
Man, that would definitely.
We have a
I
home
don't
run
think that
derby
would.
during the
You
summer.
know what? I think that's better than a freaking tie. There's no ties in baseball.
Oh,
Let me channel my inner Tom Hanks.
That's as close as you're ever going to
Ties in
get to.
baseball.
That is as close as you'll ever get to even trying to say, "What if we did NHL in the MLB?" No. What they have right now is fine. I'm just telling you, like, I will be supportive of the second base guy, but
Yeah.
Cody, just Cody giving me that. Thank you, Cody.
Hey,
I'm glad you just did that to me.
Let's see.
No, exactly. No, hey,
the baseball purist in me is fuming.
hey, he did put a disclaimer out there, though. To be fair, Zach, put a disclaimer there.
No one can come back to me and say that I was taking this seriously. This was not being taken seriously.
I mean, we get a home run derby during. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be. Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting. I mean, it
There's no
probably will never
time
happen,
in
but it'll be
baseball.
interesting.
5 rainouts. We still got to finish it. We have 2 innings left. Goes to extra innings. Oh my God! I thought we would end it after 9. The baseball gods want this game to go forever. And then you rain out the extra innings. Fine, you win. I'm done. I'm leaving.
Oh man, it was. I mean, it's. idea was definitely out of the box there, Zach. But
Out of the press box.
yeah,
Definitely
there you
out of the
go.
press
There you
box with
go.
that one.
Yes, sir. That was really beyond. That was stretching beyond.
That
the
was
press
really
box.
beyond the
I
press.
was reaching way out there.
That was really beyond the press box.
Hey, we have lived up to our name here.
Hey, that's the truth.
Going really far beyond the press box there, but yeah, I do agree with you guys. I think the way that the MLB has it set up right now with the runner on second base, automatic runner rule, really
You don't
for
agree
both
with me,
pitchers.
Don't put me into that conversation.
Yeah.
Nobody puts Codey in a corner.
Oh man, we're
Now the
having way too
purist
much.
in
We are
me.
having so much fun tonight, man. I'm excited, but no, I like we've been saying, I do agree with you, Zach, and Willer. I think the automatic runner rule, and Cody, I agree with you as well. I think the ties, that's just like a participation. Well, you were mentioning that point system again, not to bring up the NHL point system again, but kind of like a participation trophy or participation points, I guess, like you mentioned for charity there. So really, that's what kind of ties are to me overall. Just kind of, hey, look, I got in. It just makes it harder, like we've been mentioning, to kind of figure out, at the end of the regular season, how to place teams and where they'll end up if you have just a bunch of ties in either like you mentioned, soccer or baseball overall. But with that being said, we do want to let you know that you're listening to Beyond the Press Box with Zach Kyleman, Yash Padee, Codey Emerson, and Will Hatzel. Be sure to follow and interact with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. To listen to more great episodes, subscribe to the podcast on anchor.fm, Spotify, Google Podcast, and Apple Podcast. You can also listen to us on the Unhinged Sports Network. Head to unhingedsn.com to listen to us and check out other great podcasts featured on the network. Before we get back to the show, we do want to let you know that through the Unhinged Sports Network, we've partnered with Fubo TV. What is Fubo TV, you may ask? Fubo TV brings you 100 plus channels, including CBS, NBC, Fox, ESPN, and many more without the hassle of a cable contract. Don't believe me? Click the link in our social media bios and start your 7-day free trial today. Fellas, I want to transition over. We touched on the MLB. We touched on opening weekend and that sort in the MLB. But I want to touch on the NFL and some breaking news out of the NFL now. Sam Darnold from the New York Jets, he got traded to the Carolina Panthers today, and so just want to get your overall reaction. I know we've been talking. This is a little overreaction Monday, but I want to get your overall reaction on the Darnold trade to Carolina, and then kind of how does this impact Teddy Bridgewater's future in Carolina overall?
Sorry about that. I just think, unfortunately, I think we all maybe saw this coming a little bit. And I feel bad for Sam Darnold. He was never gifted the best situation in New York. The best receiver I think he ever played with was Robbie Anderson, who's a solid receiver. He gets to Robbie Anderson's in Carolina, isn't he? Now that I actually think about that, I did not put
great season last year.
It was not until now where I just put 2 and 2 together. Hey, so there you go. He gets to be reunited with him, but he had a terrible offensive line. He had, Le'Veon Bell never really wanted to be there. Never had a really great running back. Never really had a great coach that believed in him. He was destined to fail. And guys, I can't tell you how many times I have to reiterate this point on this show. Where you are drafted matters. I can't tell you how many times I'm going to have to continue to say it. You could put that, I'll take that quote with me to my grave. Where you're drafted as an NFL quarterback matters. Sam Darnold was drafted to a piece of garbage team. The Jets have been a dumpster fire basically for a while. They had those two, hell, I'll call them a fluke, AFC championship appearances. But besides that, they've been a joke of an NFL franchise. And excluding Joe Namath, I think that's the last successful quarterback they've had. Chad Pennington, you could maybe say. But at the very end of the day, they've been the laughing stock. They've been one of the laughing stocks in the league. Sam Darnold did not deserve that. I still believe in Sam Darnold. The Panthers obviously believe in Sam Darnold. Now you pair him with Christian McCaffrey, arguably the best all-around running back in football. You give him Robbie Anderson. Trying to think, Carolina may need to go out and draft a receiver too. I can't remember exactly who all is still on that roster. I know Curtis Samuel left. But at least Sam Darnold has a familiar face there. And by the way, what he got taken for, like a 6th round pick, I know a future 4th round pick, I believe, that's a steal for Carolina. That's an absolute steal. And for the Jets, this basically says we're getting a quarterback at 2.
Most likely Zach Wilson.
Yeah, I'd go Justin Fields, but that's my Ohio State bias showing there. But yes, they're going to take a quarterback. Most likely Zach Wilson at 2. So it's going to be interesting. I don't know what I don't think Zach Wilson's being brought in, or whoever they bring in. I don't think he's being brought into a great situation. Like I said, like I literally just got done saying, where you're drafted matters. I'm not a fan of the Jets receiving core. Jamison Crowder's I'd say a B receiver. Denzel Mims didn't show anything last year. Who they got a stone, literally a fossil at running back in Frank Gore. Adam Gase is still there. So Zach Wilson's not going into a great situation, or like I keep saying Zach Wilson because that's basically the name that's been flirting around.
You forget though, Corey Davis is now.
That's right. They did sign Corey Davis. You have Corey Davis and you have Jamison Crowder. Yeah, it's an okay receiving core. So we'll see what Zach Wilson does with that. Or I keep saying Zach Wilson, and knowing my luck, they're going to say, nope, we're not taking Zach Wilson. We're taking someone else, but who knows? But where you're drafted matters. They both each side gets a fresh start. I don't think there's no loser in this trade, really. I think the Jets, and it's also been reported, the Panthers obviously believe in Sam Darnold because they're picking up his 5th-year option. That was also reported shortly after the trade. So both teams kind of get what they want. The Jets are going to hit the reset button again. Who knows if they finally hit with their quarterback or not. Sam Darnold gets a fresh start. And the big question, what does this mean for Teddy Bridgewater? I think they basically come out and said they're probably going to get rid of him. I kind of feel bad for Teddy. He's been I think the definition of good but not great quarterbacks in one of the good but not great quarterbacks in this league. He can kind of just steer the ship a little bit. Basically the placeholder quarterback. So where does he end up? I know Chicago has been maybe rumored as a place where he could end up. But just like to basically recap, both sides get a fresh start. Don't think there's really any losers here.
And I don't think so, really. Either. Look, Sam Darnold has been an anomaly for some people, mainly because you've been stuck with you had Todd Bowles in his final year, so you couldn't have a coach that was offensively minded to help development, and you had Adam Gase, who, let's be honest, many of us, not all, but many of us saw after he had a lame duck ending in Miami. They picked him up in New York, and we all went, okay, this is about going to go how we expected, and he got 2 years out of him, and now it's about as what we expect. It was a lame duck coaching stand for Adam Gase. Not much was coming out of it. A lot of these bad locker room issues, disconnect, if you will, between the front office as well as the coaching staff, and it was a mess. And you were stuck with a poor offensive line for the majority of that in Darnold's case. So I honestly say this is great. And you're talking about Carolina. Look, Teddy Bridgewater was brought in to really guide an offense that I think had pieces last year. People thought they had some pieces that they could work with. And at the end of the year, if even with Teddy Bridgewater having a subpar season, which, if you're in Carolina, at least the front office says it's below subpar and mediocre, you had two receivers that were pushing 1,000-yard seasons, for crying out loud. I mean, Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore on the opposite side, I mean, they're both well established in their roles, and both are very much capable, versatile threats, either in the short passing game or, in Robbie Anderson's case, he's an excellent deep threat for when he was with the New York Jets and now with Carolina.
I forgot about DJ
Sam
Moore.
Darnold already has.
I completely forgot about DJ Moore. I don't know how I did.
I know, and that's something I think a lot of people don't realize is, Moore is a very capable receiver right now, one that's going to continuously, I think, get better. Sam Darnold, I think, has the best chance right now to take a step. And Christian McCaffrey, who is arguably the best running back in the NFL when healthy, overall, for sure, best overall running back. Not only do you have a great runner and someone that can take off pressure, but you have an excellent pass catcher and somebody that is a great safety valve as well. I don't know how much more you can ask for with weapons. Now, the Carolina Panthers, they are not as bad as the Jets have been. But I will say they're middle of the pack. The Panthers might now address that offensive line. If I was being honest, they do have a young defense, but one that was showing potential throughout the season. Matt Rule showed last year that he has a team that is ready and is very much behind what he is doing. They just needed more talent. So if Darnold is that piece, and I'm talking as if a Bears fan, with Andy Dalton, how the front office claims there is the piece, then Darnold should hopefully take a step with more weapons, probably the most he's had in his career in the NFL. And hopefully we see some progress if they believe him. And if they picked up since they picked up his fifth-year option, we hope to say that is the case. But, in terms of the Jets, I mean, this is clear path, whether it's Zach Wilson, whether it's Justin Fields, obviously that's the debate right now. Why is Wilson ahead of Fields? Why is Fields ahead of Wilson? That's in terms right now. Most people say it's Wilson. Even some people are now claiming Mac Jones is going to jump up there because of the 49ers jumping up into the top picks, if you will. So, QBs in particular, it's a kind of a mess, but no matter what, the Jets are going to get someone behind center, hopefully for the better. And remember, the Jets do have 2 first-round picks. There's another one at the 23rd spot that they have from Seattle, giving away Jamal Adams. So you do pick up that QB. Now, what you hope is with Robert Saleh, who already has come out and looks to be a 5 to 10 times better coach in terms of mindset than what Adam Gase ever was with the Jets, that they do something right with that 23rd pick. Either they trade back, get some more talent, maybe in the second round, if you will, start rebuilding more of a roster that needs pieces that are key to build around a Zach Wilson, or at least to protect him. Or at that pick, you go for a lineman there that, can help with protection, much like they did last year. So, there's choices. And if whoever goes there, whether it's Wilson, whether it's Fields, maybe Mac Jones, like I said, Mac Jones has been more in the conversation as of late, someone there, they have a chance to keep building to add protection. So both sides get out of this fine. The only loser is Teddy Bridgewater. Where does he go? I did mention before we got on here that Chicago is I was high maybe on him going to Chicago earlier. And the only situation I'd see him going is if it was like a Carson Wentz, where I originally said that it would be a cheap deal, extremely cheap, because the Panthers have no leverage in this and they're already in a bad scenario with the Teddy as it is. But I will say Matt Miller brought up a really good point on Twitter. The Washington football team, yeah, they have Ryan Fitzpatrick. Yeah, they have Tyler Heineke, which, by the way, I really love Tyler Heineke, and I hope he were to win that battle. But they have cap room. That could add to a more established QB. They did pick up some receiving weapons in the offseason. It's a longer-term deal. They could probably end up restructuring it, just given his performance last year and the lower stock he has. That's an option. But Carolina would have to figure out how they would deal with him. But I almost feel like this will end ugly and it'll still end up in some sort of cut. It just has that feeling. Teddy probably wants to leave and they'll try, but I have a feeling that NFL teams at this point are like, well, we're this close to the draft, and most of the teams have a QB that they think they're well behind. Either you're going to give me him for cheap, or you're just going to cut him and we'll try and pick him up. Like, it's one or the other. You're not going to get much stock back. And this situation to me is not very salvageable. That's the only loser is Teddy Bridgewater, I'm afraid.
Yeah, where it's related with the Bears, Zach, I'll carry off of that. A little disappointed that they traded him today, because in my mind of what's not going to happen probably, but I was hoping for is, maybe they decide to keep Darnold, and maybe the Bears have an opportunity to try to pry that second pick from the Jets if they're not going to go quarterback. But obviously they're going to have to now because they don't have one. So, and they're right in the middle there. They're going to miss out on more than likely Trevor Lawrence, but other than that, they're going to have the pick of, they're going to be able to pick from the rest of what's on the shelf, and that's almost everything. So I'm a little disappointed about that, but I'll say more on the Bears later on, but they still have an opportunity to get involved. My overall thoughts on Sam Darnold's tenure, I mean, it's a great trade. I think he deserves to get out of town and go someplace else and have a fair shot, a better shot of proving that he can be a quarterback in the NFL. Yeah, I mean, the Panthers, I mean, you gave up a couple of draft picks, and the second round pick isn't even until next year. So, I mean, you got time to try to get another pick back if you want, and it is what it is. You didn't really break the bank in your draft stock to get him. So it's a good, and you know what? I don't think there's really a true winner or loser here. I think the Jets, okay, they acquired a few more draft picks, and ultimately I think they're going to get a guy that arguably could be better than Sam Darnold. I personally am not that high on Sam Darnold. Look, Deshaun Watson, now I know that the Texans were a little bit, obviously better a couple of years ago, but Deshaun Watson, there's no doubt, even on the crappy team he played on this past season, there's no doubt he's a generational talent. He's, one of the best quarterbacks in the league today. He's a great passer, one of the few quarterbacks that's actually able to be mobile and run around and throw the ball and be effective as a passer still. Sam Darnold, even though he's in a crappy situation, the guy only threw over 3,000 yards once. He's never thrown 20 touchdown passes or more. He's always thrown 10 plus interceptions. He's been a turnover machine, 39 interceptions, 11 fumbles. Now, to be fair, I know he's been on a crap team and they haven't done anything for him. I mean, the poor guy, he's been sacked 98 times in his first 3 seasons. I mean, the guy is almost could have been at Russell Wilson anger levels in the amount of times he's been hit. Even in his short career, 3 years, he's almost been sacked 100 times. No wonder why he fumbled 11 times and probably had to rush a couple of throws. So I don't want to say Sam Darnold's not an NFL quarterback. I'm not ready to label that yet, but I'm kind of in the opposite corner of a lot of other people where they're I just don't think he's shown anything yet to be like, oh man, he's got it. He's got it. We never truly, I mean, we thought that with Trubisky after 2018, and look what happened. So just because you're a little flashy too for one season doesn't mean you have all the components. He was great in college, absolutely. And having arguably the best running back in the league on your team now, having Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, David Moore, he's got a solid crew to play with now, so that I mean this upcoming season will now prove, Sam Darnold will be able to prove maybe what he is and if he's going to be legit or not. So I don't think the Panthers got a steal. I mean, they sent a couple average picks over for a guy that's been at best, and I don't even know if he's been at best an average quarterback yet. Not all his fault, but some of these talented guys, like I said, Deshaun Watson is the perfect example. The guy, even through adversity, at least his individual performance and statistics are fantastic. they're just not always translating the wins because the rest of the team was bad. Sam Darnold, I didn't even really see much of that potential. And I tried to pay attention anytime a Jets game was on. Not that I watched every Jets game. It's just not that. It wasn't that often I was like, wow, Sam Darnold really took control of this game, or Sam Darnold really put the team on his back, or did as much as he could to elevate this team to be at least relevant on every other Sunday, or to have a chance in a game. I just didn't see a lot of that. But I am excited to see him get another shot in Carolina. And he's going to be probably one of the top guys that people are going to watch to be comeback player of the year. I'm going to root for him. Absolutely. There's no reason not to. I'm just not totally convinced he's still a guy we should expect to be one of the best quarterbacks or have a lengthy career. He does have to prove that still, but it is a good trade for both teams. I think the Jets could get a better quarterback in this draft. And the Panthers, yeah, Teddy Bridgewater. The reason why I wouldn't want him on the Bears per se is just because the guy, he's inconsistent and he can't stay healthy. I mean, the guy's got to get some meat on his bones, man. He gets hit one time and it looks like he's like a twig that gets snapped in half. I mean, the guy, a 300-pound lineman sacking him or tackling him when he's scrambling on the run, the guy is just going to fold over like a piece of paper. So I don't think with the Bears, there's every option should be on the table, of course, but at this point, and like I said, I'll hold off on it, but I really think the Bears should try to trade up in the draft because there's been some other reports and stuff coming out that, maybe Atlanta or the Lions will want to move lower into the draft. So, I mean, if the Bears could get to the fourth spot, the fourth pick, I mean, you still got a couple quarterbacks there. So it'll be interesting to see, but I think it's looking more and more like the first couple of picks, guys, or at least the top 10 of this draft. A lot of quarterbacks are going to go, and the Jets are just another team to be the next domino of quarterback moves happening. So it's a good trade. It's a good trade, and it's going to be an intriguing story for both sides to see who ends up performing better. What's the better outcome? Who gets that? Is it Sam Darnold or is it the Jets?
And you look at this Carolina Panthers roster here. Look at the plethora of quarterbacks they have. Not only Teddy Bridgewater, now they bring in Sam Darnold. They've already got Will Grier, former West Virginia Mountaineer, Tommy Stevens, and Zach, your guy from the XFL, PJ Walker, on that roster as well. So it is interesting the amount of quarterbacks that the Panthers have, and it'll be interesting to see the quarterback competition. Even if they let Bridgewater go, see what Grier and PJ Walker and Tommy Stevens can do in that quarterback room against Sam Darnold.
All I have to say here, Sam Darnold better stop seeing ghosts. This is your fifth year option, your chance to break out. Better start seeing the field for what it is. Just saying.
Oh, that's yeah.
Can't see ghosts anymore, man.
Yeah, you can't see the ghosts there anymore. But speaking of quarterbacks, let's talk about the Chicago Bears. We did it. Will, you touched on it at the end there. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for bringing this up. But let's talk about the red rifle, or the wet rifle, as I call them, QB1. And Matt Nagy, he said earlier this past weekend that he's going to take back the play calling duties for the Bears, take them away from Bill Lazor. And so kind of Will and Zach, I want to get your thoughts on that decision by Matt Nagy, and should he have left those duties to Bill Lazor? Because fun fact, I'll throw in my fun fact in the ring here. Bill Lazor used to be Andy Dalton's former quarterback coach and offensive coordinator in Cincinnati. So, I for one am perplexed by this decision, but I just want to get your thoughts overall.
Well, it's a very fun and important fact, isn't it? The guy that already is comfortable and knows what Andy Dalton wants. Look, the main reason this is being brought up is because we had last year, Matt Nagy relieved play calling. For the most part, with one god-awful first impression from Bill Lazor, they then switched to run first, pass second when they brought Mitch Trubisky back in. mainly first from injury. Then they just stuck with him the remainder of the year. And you know what? It was working because that's what the Bears offense, in terms of at least what it was, the lineup in terms of linemen that they had brought in, the personnel changes there, as well as the fact that Dave Montgomery, in my opinion, at that point had been underutilized in that offense. They went to their strengths and it worked. And I give credit, and as much as Matt Nagy might have had some input, Laser was calling those plays. Laser also was part of the reason to change that over. And he was getting a lot of credit from guys that, not just myself, but also Chicago news media as well, for some of those play changes, for making the offense more simplified and working towards the strengths, something that Matt Nagy has been criticized in his tenure of not doing. And he very much tries to fit, at least we have noticed as fans and as some news personnel, he tries to fit a square peg into a round hole. Now, credit, they're saying Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy this year, since they have signed on Andy Dalton, they have said that this will be an upgrade. This is the guy that will make the system work. Which, if that's the case, that's why you see Matt Nagy getting the play calling back. Not also because of the fact that he is an offensive-minded coach. He's been a play caller pretty much since he's had the chance in Kansas City, and when he came to Chicago, it's a very prideful thing for him as well. So I get why he's doing it. But look, I don't know if I would say that Andy Dalton is the solution that makes Matt Nagy want to take that back. And I know it was a dire straits type of thing last year. They were desperate to get to the playoffs, and there was a mood around the building that Nagy was going to lose his job. Now credit, we can argue that the Bears saved his job against some pretty mediocre teams and waddled into the playoffs, and the McCaskies were all happy and up in arms with celebrations that we made that that seventh seeded playoff playoff contention. I mean, Jesus, it sounds as ridiculous as I'm talking about. I'm laughing saying it, but that's where we're at. So that's why we're stuck with this. Andy Dalton's here. The thought is that they've already stated it and they're dead set in their ways right now, unless they're hiding something from us coming to draft, which, you know what? It's happened before. So not saying that won't happen, or that, like Will's talked about with them jumping up. I don't think it will. Maybe it does, but I don't think it will. But, he wants to have play calling. He's wanted it, and he's had it since he's been in Chicago. Last year, you can write off as desperate times call for desperate measures. But honestly, I kind of want Laser calling the plays, because last year, even though it was against mediocre opponents, that was working. And I think you're going to have the same style work in your favor. The Bears have a plethora of running backs they can work with. It is definitely, in terms of on paper, is a really damn good running back core in Chicago. You have, of course, David Montgomery, who took, I thought, a massive stride last year towards a legitimate one of the top guys in the NFL in terms of rushing. And he's a multi-threat running back as well. Let's not forget, Tariq Cohen's going to be healthy this year. He was knocked out earlier in the season. Great safety valve for Andy Dalton this year. Would have been if Mr. Trubisky was here, which, that's its own story, And now you have Damian Williams, who, as all of us know, one of the heroes of Super Bowl 53, was an excellent pass catching running back, great between the tackles too. Again, not in terms of as sturdy as a Dave Montgomery, but in terms of, at least skill set, that's a third running back that you can have that has the tools to have any down availability. The Bears are really stout at their RB position, which is why, with how Laser was running the offense last year, that's where I think you should go. But knowing how Matt Nagy has been, whether it's in terms of personnel, whether it's in terms of what he wants to run, he has been a pass-first offense type of guy, because that's just what Kansas City was running at the time under Andy Reid, and it's an RPO. Now, maybe Andy Dalton's ransom, they've been talked that he has, sure, okay, but I'm not going to have confidence that an RPO system with Andy Dalton is going to make me justify why Matt Nagy should be calling the plays. Bill Lazor, to me, makes the most sense, especially as Yash is saying, that connection. But I, as a Bears fan, know why Nagy's doing this. And unfortunately, that took some confidence. The little shred of me left kind of screamed inside and faded away into the distance. Things can change, but hearing Nagy calling plays again after what I've seen as a 3-year test of it, not really much confidence is in me. I feel like, why go back to something that was broken when you had a possible solution that fixed things at the end of the year? Why not continue with that? That's what I think.
Zach, I don't think it really matters who's calling plays until you figure out the offense, the personnel. they're rumored to be really thrilled to have Andy Dalton. Okay, maybe he ends up being better than Mitchell Trubisky, but it's not going to be by miles. It's going to be by feet. Maybe it's not going to be. And maybe he proves us wrong. Maybe he has a career year, the best year he has. Maybe he's a comeback player of the year candidate. I don't know, but I don't expect it. But if the Bears don't go into this draft and stock up and try to replace a couple of voids on the offensive line, um, if they don't go and try to acquire one or two more receivers, if they don't really need a running back anymore. I'm glad you brought up the running backs. That running back committee is beautiful. David Montgomery is your one. I think Damian Williams is your true number two. And I think that's great to have some depth behind Montgomery so you don't run him into the ground. Tariq Cohen, question mark of will he bounce back from that torn ACL? But also Tariq Cohen's kind of your crafty guy that gets to do the punt returns and gets to do, the screen plays, the trick plays. I mean, he's a good tool to have. I just don't think he's your every down back or even really not even your backup per se. I think you got to use in special situations. And since, Matt Nagy, if he is so clever with his play calling and his play design, well, maybe he could find some even more unique things for Tariq Cohen to do in this upcoming season. In terms of quarterback, like I kind of hinted to in the last, in the topic with the Jets and with Sam Darnold. I mean, look, it just came out today that it's rumored that the Falcons and the Lions are looking to potentially trade down. Okay. The Falcons have the 4th pick in the draft. You could get yourself probably either Mac Jones or Justin Fields. I'm gonna go with what a lot of people are saying. It's Trevor Lawrence to Jacksonville. It's Zach Wilson to the Jets. There's no reason why the Bears don't get aggressive. Even if you are dead set on not going for a quarterback, I would even be trading up with the Falcons or the Bengals or the Dolphins. Well, I think the Dolphins are going to really want to stay and get a receiver, but even the Lions, you want to get better, even if you don't want to get a quarterback and get that aggressive. And maybe you could get Jamar Chase. Maybe you could get one of these other wide receivers then before they get grabbed. You want to get another tight end because you need somebody that's a little bit faster and more agile than Jimmy Graham and even Cole Kmet. Kyle Pitts would be great. He's in the CBS mock draft. He's projected to go 4th to the Falcons. That's without them trading. The point is, if you're the Bears, it doesn't matter if Nagy's calling the plays or Laser's calling the plays. You got to get more talent. There's got to be another reliable wide receiver for Andy Dalton or said quarterback to throw to. And also, you got to be grooming whoever the next guy is. You can't sit here and think that Andy Dalton is your quarterback for the next 5 years. That's absurd and that's ridiculous if he ends up staying, unless he pulls a Ryan Tannehill situation. And I don't think he will because, again, he's playing for the Bears. If he couldn't have success with all that star-studded talent that he had on that Dallas offense that he played with, he's not going to do it with the Bears. And the play calling, again, you have to have guys that could do what your plays call for. And that's why Mitchell Trubisky is supposedly not here anymore, is because the way Nagy wanted his quarterback to call plays and run the offense was never what he was able to do. That's what the talk's been about for the last 2-3 years. Can he do what Nagy wants him to do, what Nagy expects and envisions a quarterback to do? Is Andy Dalton going to be that much better? I'm not sure, but you have to fill in the voids of Bobby Massey being gone. You have to get another wide receiver because I don't trust Riley Ridley. I don't trust Javon Wims. I don't trust Anthony Miller. And Darnell Mooney had a great rookie season, but the guy's a slot receiver. Okay, stop thinking he's going to be able to catch a 50-yard bomb down the field. He's only going to do it if the ball lands in his arms perfectly. It's got to be a perfect throw because the guy's not going to be a go up and get it guy because he's not that big. That's something that I don't care if it's Laser or Nagy. You got to recognize that. You got to understand that you have to either go get the players that will fit the mold of what you want them to do in your offense, or you have to change your offensive strategy and your plays around what you have. And that was a critique I had of the team last year, is that they tried to force guys to do things like Darnell Mooney, like I said, trying to do a Hail Mary pass down the field and jump up and go get it. No, that's not what Mooney's built for. He's not that big of a guy. But you can't expect Allen Robinson to get every pass because he's going to be double covered, triple covered every single game. That's that's known that he's their best threat. So go get some other guys, more weapons, whether it's a wide receiver, another tight end, or again, get a quarterback, because God forbid if Andy Dalton gets hurt or sucks, you're gonna succeed with Nick Foles again. I don't think so. So the only intriguing thing about Laser is that yes, he knows Andy Dalton very well, but let's not act like, my final thought here. Let's not act like that Laser's gonna sit on his hands in the office and not do anything. He's at least what should happen is Nagy should ask him, and they should sit down and have a discussion. Okay, what do you remember working with Andy when you were with him calling plays? What are Andy's strengths? What do you think he's good at? What kind of receivers and running backs, meshed well with him? Go get an AJ Green type of receiver in the draft. Acquires, get some guys that could replicate some of the plays and some of the success he did have in Cincinnati, because let's not act like he didn't have any success. I know they never won a playoff game, but again, you got to get the talent. And truthfully, I think Nagy should take the play calling back, because it's a make or break year for these guys, or at least we think it is. I don't know what the McCaskies think, but they got rid of Trubisky, who was supposedly the guy hindering Nagy's offense and holding him back. Okay, well, this is what you wanted for your next, for this is what you wanted. So let's see if you could do it. And that's why I'm okay with Nagy taking it back, because if you truly are the coach and the offensive guy that should be leading this team and coaching this team going forward, you got to prove it this year. So, but again, you got to have the talent. And again, it's not like DiFilippo and Laser aren't going to have a say in anything. I mean, I hope Nagy's not that egotistical to where he wants to control everything, but you got to understand his job may be on the line this season. So I can understand if he wants to put his fate in his own hands.
No, and I mean, I do agree with both points of what both of you have said. You can't, it doesn't matter who calls plays until you have that offense fixed. And Zach, I told you I brought up that point with Bill Lazor, knowing Andy Dalton, and I feel like with the Bears being quote unquote thrilled to have Andy Dalton on their roster, you'd think they'd make it easier for the guy in giving Bill Lazor the opportunity to work with him. But who knows? Maybe, like you said, maybe Andy Dalton breaks out, has a career year, leads them into the playoffs and does something fantastical. I don't know.
We can only hope. And Will, I gotta thank you, because look, I'm gonna be honest with you. I've been approaching this season as basically the break side of the make or break. And that could be just the fact of seeing the moves on the surface, like an Andy Dalton, just doesn't make me seem like we're going to continue on this same path type of thing. I know the McCaskies have said that, the Bears are on the right path.
Yeah.
But
and Dalton is 32 years old, so keep that in mind as well. So he's getting up there in age, in terms of,
it's also, it is a 1-year deal too, which I know that,
Yeah.
But I mainly am thinking, okay, if we're going to salvage any of this, and based on my experience, that's the only reason why I'm bringing this up, where I'm just like, don't really have much confidence with him. I understand he should be given his every fair chance. But success, and if the McCaskies think this is the right direction with these guys, and if they're looking at especially the end of the last season, which that was what I find funny with those exit interviews, is they always talk about the end of the year where they got out of that 6-game losing streak and finished strong. I know Matt Nagy is behind the scenes, but you have one man calling those plays and helping adapt the offense, which is the only reason why I'm bringing it up. It's just, I wasn't given the fair shake, so I'll give it that credit. So gotta thank Will for that. Sometimes you get a little lost in your head, but I'm just saying, surface level stuff sometimes doesn't look great, and that's exactly what this looks like so far going into the draft.
Zach, I'm just tired of the Bears. I'm just tired of the Bears like trying to paint over the scars or the dents in the wall. They're just patching over a hole.
I remember you saying, Will, like, you're thinking if the Bears going down this path, you're going to have the same jersey like the Browns with the quarterback names going down the list.
Might as well.
Exactly.
At this point, might as well, right?
No. Just create a custom Bears jersey with all the the quarterbacks' names there. But
I mean, hell, if I was more of a Bears fan when I was 6 years old, I could have changed out my Cade McNown jersey for a Rex Grossman one at that point, and then switched it over to be a Mike Glennon one at some point. I mean, that's just for that number in itself. We're talking, and there's plenty of others down the line.
Yeah. But no, I mean, again, we'll have to see. We'll have to see what the future holds with Nagy calling plays, and the future for Cody. Your New England Patriots made a big splash in free agency. Future looks bright for New England as a whole, and the Patriots came out and they said Bill Belichick. They're working as a collaborative team. Normally, their draft meetings were closed off with Belichick, certain advisors, but now Belichick is actually "quote unquote" collaborating with scouts to in preparation for the
Trusting
draft.
people who actually do their job.
Hey, that's what I've heard.
Who actually do their job.
That's what I've heard. But Boston.com, I read a report today. They label 3 non-QB prospects. Now, apparently Todd McShay, before we get into this, Todd McShay, I looked at his draft board, and he's saying that the Patriots are going to make a move from that 15th spot to try and get Justin Fields. That's the analysis of Todd McShay.
Guys, you would not be able to stand me the next podcast. You wouldn't be able to stand me.
That is your
I'm busy that day.
That is the dream to get a Buckeye in
occupation
in New England. But no, and so that's the expert prediction analysis there from Todd McShay. But there are some non-QB prospects that the Patriots could get and look at. But Boston.com labeled 3 of them: Jalen Waddle, J.C. Horn, and Micah Parsons. So do you agree with the 3 non-QB prospects that the Patriots get? Do you agree with that assessment? And how do you see these prospects fitting into Bill Belichick's scheme?
As much as I see why all 3 of them are listed, the most notable one being Jalen Waddle. Holy crap! If he fell to us, I would. Granted, I'll say this: Bill Belichick. I mean, it's been well documented. Even Robert Kraft has come out and said, as of late, how they've struggled in the draft, specifically at skill position players. But I think if you have a guy like Jalen Waddle on your board, and he's there, I think you have to take him. In terms of, because, I mean, if we're being honest, the Patriots wide receivers still, the tight ends, phenomenal. Brought back James White, so kind of give Cam like a check down safety valve type option. Really pumped about that. You look at the wide receivers still, and you could use some work. I mean, Nelson Aguilar is, I'd say, more of a number 2 at best. Kendrick Bourne, it kind of, I mean, 49ers were riddled with injury last year, so he got a chance to play and show what he can do. So, but you still look and you're like, who does Cam really have to throw to? He still has Damiere Byrd, Jacoby Myers, Julian Edelman. I mean, still can't forget about him. So I just think wide receiver, you could say the Patriots still have a need there. So Jalen Waddle, I'd be fantastic. I keep bringing up on this show the Alabama Patriot kind of connection with Nick Saban and the Bill Belichick. So it'll be interesting there. Micah Parsons,
former Big Ten guy.
I think that's the linebacker is the least of our worries right now, a little bit. You got Dante Hightower coming back. Then you also have guys like Josh Uche. We just signed Matthew Judon as kind of that edge type guy. Micah Parsons is a dude. The dude ran like I think a 4.3 something 4.4 at his pro day at Penn State. So the dude's an absolute freak. And I mean that in the nicest way possible. But I just don't think linebacker is a particular need right now. Although if we end up drafting him, I always use the term "in Bill we trust," so I guess I'd be okay with it. Then you look at J.C. Horn, the corner. Everyone says the Patriots need to address their corners. I really don't see it that way. Stephon Gilmore's open to restructuring his contract. That's been in the news as of I think in the last few weeks. You still have, Jason McCourty's a free agent. I still think the Patriots bring him back. I mean, playing with your twin brother, Devin McCourty, and competing for another playoff chance. I'm not going to say Super Bowl chance, but just as they're both kind of finishing out their careers, I think that just kind of be a cool thing to do as they continue to do. You still have Jonathan Jones, J.C. Jackson. I think the Patriots put a second-round tender on him. He hasn't been signed as of yet. I think he's a restricted free agent. I'd have to do some more research on that, but I don't see corner and like the kind of secondary as a need. We brought in Jalen Mills too, so I don't think the secondary you really need to worry about this year. In the draft, maybe a later round guy, just maybe on a practice squad type thing. So I would say Jalen Waddle would be my top of those three guys. Jalen Waddle probably number one, Micah Parsons 2, and then J.C. Horn number 3. But I usually like to have my favorites of guys that I want the Patriots to draft, and then usually they draft a guy I've never heard of in the first round. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, I always say in Bill we trust, so I'll have faith in Bill and whoever he takes, because he knows a heck of a lot more about football than I do.
And you think about the team that he had, that Coach Belichick had last season, and the fact that he was able to go 7-9, and still, and some of those games like we talked about were super competitive. The Seattle game,
the Seattle,
last
Denver,
year,
Buffalo. I could go on.
And so, now you take the splash that they made in free agency. And I know you've always had that saying, Cody, and Bill, we trust. So
and Bill we trust.
Yeah. So, if he can do what he did last year with the team that he had, definitely I see the Patriots, playing much better, and getting into making a run in the playoffs this year. But we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah. No.
I know, Cody, you want to we want to talk about some UCLA, Gonzaga, some college basketball, college hoops, as the national championship is tonight, the day that we're recording, Gonzaga and Baylor. But quickly, I want to get your thoughts on Bleacher Report. They had a list for every NFL team's best draft pick in the past kind of decade. So when you look at this list, do you agree with the name that is associated with your team, or who would you pick as your best if you had to look back over the last 10 years of draft picks? Who would you say was the best draft pick that your team had?
Well, this list says it's Eddie Jackson, and that's a pretty good opinion. I think he's one of them. I actually beg to differ a little bit. I would go with Roquan Smith. Of course, how typical. The Bears, they always seem to do a great job of drafting defense and not offense. Roquan Smith is my pick because and I think the reason why he wasn't picked on this list is literally how his career's been. Like outside of Chicago, this guy is severely underappreciated. This guy is averaged over 100 tackles in each of his first 3 seasons. Now in 2019, he probably could have had an even better year. He missed 4 games due to injuries and personal issues, but he's got 11 sacks in his career, over 350 tackles, 4 interceptions. He's got 14 passes defensed. I mean, he does a little bit of it all. He's maybe not a sack master, maybe he's not a turnover machine, but the guy is able to. He's only got 1 forced fumble in his career, and I think 1 recovery. So he's not a turnover machine, but he does a little bit of everything. And it's kind of what you expect from a middle linebacker, to have his presence all over the field. So he has quickly become one of the best in the league. I think he got snubbed from the Pro Bowl this past season. I know I don't really think there's too many other middle linebackers that are better than him. I think he's pretty soon going to probably be a top 5 middle linebacker in the league. This guy is really good. If he could stay healthy and keep on the same trajectory he appears to be on, I think he's going to be really well, because and really outside of him and Eddie Jackson, a lot of these guys over the last 10 years haven't panned out. Like Kyle Fuller was probably another good example to have.
Yeah, I was gonna say Kyle Fuller, didn't make the cut.
The thing is, Kyle Fuller, yeah, he had a really good rookie year. Then he kind of fell off for a little bit. Kyle Fuller, you don't lose sleep overnight with him not being on your team. Like, as much as I'm disappointed he's not on the team, it's because of the way that the Bears managed money and what they did with Andy Dalton and things like that. I was upset that they got rid of him released him rather than trade him. But in terms of everybody that's lasted over the last 10 years, I think it's Kyle Fuller's the one that's got had a nice long-term career with the Bears. But Roquan Smith, I think he's been consistently a little bit better than Eddie Jackson. Now, credit Eddie Jackson being I think he was a 5th round pick. So I mean, that's impressive to be that good when you get drafted that low. But I'm going with Roquan. This guy, I'm telling you guys, he keeps it up the way he's been playing. He's going to be a top 5 middle linebacker in the league pretty soon.
I'm glad you brought up Roquan. Definitely underappreciated. And Yash, Kyle Fuller is another choice. Just the problem is that Fuller hadn't really been a complete all-around star up until about 2018. I mean, folks remember or sometimes forget 24 when he was drafted originally. He did have a stellar rookie campaign. He fell off going into 2018. He was borderline not going to make the roster. He was a potential roster cut in training camp. He actually had to prove himself to get on, then had a stellar 2018 campaign that got himself into a Pro Bowl. And the rest has been kind of history. He's at least gotten himself to the point where he's one of the most respected cornerbacks in the NFL. But I think Eddie Jackson gets this nod still for me, simply because it was a late round talent. Jackson was knocked for injuries in particular going in, and he has been for the most part a star. Now, credit, dude needs a rebound season this year, because last year was pretty terrible, all things considered, for the pay that he's being given and for the Pro Bowl status that Jackson has. But for the most part, I mean, besides Jackson, you can go for Fuller, Roquan Smith. Weecher brought up, of course, Kyle Long, but again, Kyle Long, inconsistent career. Same with Kyle Fuller. You have to, if I'm talking about at least the most, come out of the draft and has made an impact since day one type of player, if it's not Roquan Smith, it is definitely a little bit more Eddie Jackson in my case. And he's also been a leader in the locker room too, to add on to that. So been a vital piece to the Bears organization throughout this journey in Chicago. And, he's going to be, again, he's going to have to make it for this year, though. Definitely needs a rebound, but he is my choice, at least by a smidge, over Roquan. But don't be so sure that Roquan's not going to overtake him next year, just from the trajectory, or this coming season, from the trajectory he had at the end of 2020.
Now, Codey, I know who your all-time best draft pick would be for the Patriots, but if you were to if you were to just narrow in on the last decade,
which I'm going to cheat ever so slightly with this question, because the guy I was looking at, I saw this question and I looked up when the guy that I'm saying is going to be drafted got drafted in 2010. So it's 11 years. I'm going an extra year just real quick. This has Joe Tooney, which phenomenal option. I mean, I wish him nothing but the best in Kansas City. Played 97% of the snaps. Like, he's been an all pro, pro bowler and whatnot. I'm going, like I said, I'm cheating just ever so slightly. I'm going with Devin McCourty. He, believe it or not, I thought he got drafted way earlier than this because it seems like the dude's been in the league forever. But he got drafted in 2010. First round pick out of Rutgers. He has been, Zach, you mentioned, with the kind of Eddie Jackson player. You talk about a leader. Devin McCourty is the heart and soul of that Patriots defense, and he has been for the last decade. I mean, he's the one always, given the defense, the pregame speeches when you see defenses huddled together before the game. Devin he's been the emotional leader. He's been the leader out there on the field in the secondary. There's a reason he's the team captain almost every year. Oh, and by the way, he's pretty damn good as a player too, by the way. Guys, his rookie year, he had 7 picks. I mean, he's consistent. He doesn't get a ton of picks, but his rookie year, he had 7. He's had 5 twice. He's just seems to be in the right position every single time. So I can't go anyone else but Devin McCourty, because it just be wrong to. The dude has been like I said, team captain. He's only been a Pro Bowler twice, which I think that's kind of a little slight at him, but I think he's definitely going to make Patriots Hall of Fame, Patriot, Ring of Honor, you name it. So, like I said, I'm going to cheat just ever so slightly and go, because he was drafted in 2010, but have to go D-Mac.
I thought for a second you were going to say Gronk. Gronk was drafted in the same draft, or he was part of the same draft class. But
I can't. I got to go with someone who's still on the team.
Yeah,
I don't even consider it cheating, just because I'm like, I was waiting for like 09 when you're saying, like, I was like, wait a minute, no, but like,
yeah, it's 2010. It's 11
it's
years,
10 on
so I pushed the envelope just ever so slightly.
Well, for my Titans, I think it's a pretty easy choice. It's the king himself, the King Henry, Derrick Henry, drafted back in 16. Yeah, so definitely a sound investment by Amy Stunk and the Titans organization there, John Robinson and the Titans organization. So for me, it's got to be the king. Derrick Henry rushed for 2,000 yards last season. He's been posting insane workout videos. Who wants to go for more? He wants to go for 3,000 next season. So, hey, always set the bar high, I guess.
3,000.
Yeah, 3,000 rushing yards. I mean, hey, man,
just imagine.
Yeah, just
in a modern era setting, a running back hitting 3K.
Hey, who knows? Who knows? It may happen. Knowing Derrick Henry, knowing the way that the Titans run first offense. I don't know, Zach. It's miracles can happen, right? We believe in miracles.
You're telling me.
But I want to kind of, before we end our show here, I know this is, again, very, very interesting time of the year. We have the national championship game coming up tonight, the day of our recording, Monday night. So very, very excited to watch that here in a little bit. But I want to talk about one of the most insane games that I've seen that'll go down in March Madness history, and that is the UCLA Gonzaga Final Four game on Saturday. Man, what a game! Right down to the wire. 11 seed exposing, I guess you could say, the Gonzaga Bulldogs there for a second, until Jalen Suggs. What a game winner with like 0.4 seconds left on the clock. Put the ball up in the air there and banked it in. So ended up Gonzaga ended up winning that one 93-90. A much more enjoyable, thrilling, edge of the seat type of game than that first Final Four game between Houston and Baylor. That was kind of, got boring to watch there in the end. But what did you make of that shot and that game overall? And then where does this rank among the great NCAA tournament games that we've seen in recent memory?
Well, you know what? It's funny. I got a quick story, and I'll actually be moving my section pretty fast in time because, as you all know, during that contest, I texted, we were all texting, "Oh my God, have you seen this?" And I'm going, "Yeah, I saw the highlight. Why?" Now I watched the extended quick cut version of the game before I came here, so I know what's happening. But I was playing Dungeons and Dragons at the time. So at the time, I missed one of the best basketball games to start.
Bruh.
What, Zach?
I deserve the flag. Yes, I was playing Dungeons and Dragons. I play as a monk dwarf. I was playing.
You better
I was
have
making
won.
sure that we were. I'm saying we had to fight through a dungeon, a cave, if you will. Actually, a sewer. It was a sewer in a kind of this abandoned city.
Can you pause the game?
No, you can't pause D&D. Are you kidding me? Get out of here. Get out of here. All I'm going to tell you is this. First off, Jalen Suggs, who already, by the way, is one of two players on that Gonzaga roster, is projected to go top 10 in the NBA draft this coming season. Wow, just amazing. And considering on the opposite side, you have UCLA, an 11 seed that is throwing haymakers just in the same type of caliber with a Gonzaga that was a stacked roster, that was one that was doubted for its conference coming in, has proven every step of the way, as we've talked, that it is a definite one seed, and they're going back to back. And you have Jaquez there drain a 3 seconds left layup, actually off a rebound, mind you, offensive rebound from his own shot. And we're thinking, oh man, we're going to double overtime. But no, we just had to end in OT, which, by the way, it's an OT, mind you. Credit. It's hard to argue it's not one of the best you've seen in our lifetime. You add the OT, you add the final shot. It just is a perfect encapsulation of what can be the crazy end moment that March Madness is waiting for. And for those that were that we talked about with complaining in the last show, there's your moment. Now you can definitely shut the hell up. So we don't even have to talk about that. I'm just saying, there's your encapsulation, and we're going to get a 1 seed versus 1 seed, what we were possibly considering the 2 de facto teams in this tournament playing. But I defer my time to the others that watch the full game. I did watch every highlight, every shot. I did catch up for this game. I'm not coming in here dumb with it, but I'm just telling you, I had Dungeons and Dragons to do on Saturday night. That's what I was doing when that shot took place. Just being honest.
I'll try and follow up Zach's Dungeon and Dragon story. I don't have an exotic story to tell like he does. But I'll say this, guys, we were due for that. We were 100% due for a buzzer beater or a game-winning buzzer beater. We hadn't had it yet. We've had a shot that sent a game, I think, to overtime. We haven't had a game winner like that yet. And the fact that it saved Gonzaga's perfect season, I mean, that's another storyline that's getting brought up. Just overall, we were due for that type of game. And I think Clark Kellogg, I watched the post-game show right afterwards, and he said it perfectly, and everyone else has said it perfectly. No one lost that. UCLA didn't lose that game. The Gonzaga, there were no losers from that game. Gonzaga just happened to have the ball last. First of all, okay, here. So for those watching, I'll put a hat on. Hats off to UCLA. What a run. Johnny Juzang, my God, that man is a wizard with the ball. And also Jaquez, and that UCLA just has a ton of guys that can just flat out ball. But Gonzaga that was Jalen Suggs' moment. We knew he's been good. But he's just that dude. And we've been waiting for a moment like that in the tournament. And so it was fitting that happened in the Final Four. We were due for that kind of moment. And it sets up a 1-1 matchup, like you said, Zach. So that's going to happen as we're recording on Monday. Sucks that we kind of can't talk about the national championship and kind of dive deep into that. We can save that for probably our next episode. But I'll end it with just saying we were due for that kind of moment. It was phenomenal. Jalen, it puts it in terms of where it ranks in history. Hate to be a kind of a Debbie Downer a little bit. People are calling it the greatest shot, whatever. Chris Jenkins, first of all, for Villanova, tops that. I'm gonna butcher it. I can't remember his name, but Jim Valvano's NC State team, I think, goes a little bit above that, just because they're in the national championship. That was the national championship. This was to get there. Still a hell of a shot and hell of a moment that's going to go down in history. But
he becomes only the third player, I think, in NCAA history to hit a game-winning buzzer beater in the Final Four.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's up there for sure. But in terms of just people saying, oh, name a better game than this. Okay, in my opinion, I just named two. And if I could go back and forth, back and look at more games, I probably could, but not take anything away from Jalen Suggs and Gonzaga, because that was a hell of a game of the tournament by far. And so Jalen Suggs just said, it's my moment, and I'm going to take it. And he is going to be leading Gonzaga to potentially, or not potentially, to play for a national championship tonight.
Yeah, this is kind of a tricky question, because you could take it really one of two ways. You could take the one way would be, where does that shot, that play specifically rank, that ending rank specifically? And then the other option would be talking about the game in general, because that's the thing. Everybody's always going to refer to that shot, but will they always refer to the game? Probably more than likely the shot. But I will say that the game as a whole, I mean, I could spend hours, and I would need a lot of time to research and think about how I would rank it, I would place it in my, top games and memories of March Madness. But I would say within the last 5 years, I would say it definitely makes the top 10, maybe close to the top 5, because of the fact that not only did you have a great shot, I mean, this game was neck and neck. This was the best game in the tournament so far. Now, barring if we'll see the thriller that's about to take place tonight, after we're done recording, maybe that game, steps it up a notch, but that'll be tough, because this game was neck and neck. I mean, the fact that, you look at the scoring breakdown, Gonzaga at the end of the first half, they're up 45-44. That it's UCLA scoring one more point than Gonzaga, 37-36 in the second half. I mean, the game was neck and neck from start to finish. It was back and forth shots, back and forth plays, and it didn't matter how many defensive stops one team or the other had. All of a sudden, then their offense was finding a way to get it done again. That game was so much fun to watch. There was not really a dull period of time. I mean, you had a NBA score 93-90, and I know it took a little bit of help in overtime to get to that point, but I mean, you're talking 70-80 points still being scored even without having OT. I mean, we had a lot of games in the 50s in 50s and 60s in this tournament. So from start to finish, this game was phenomenal. And of course, it's like the cherry on top with the game winning three, a half court shot. It was phenomenal. So it's definitely going to rank up there. And Codey, I think you're so right that we deserve this game, because we just talked about it last week on the last episode we did. We were like, this tournament's been okay, where we debated whether or not this tournament's been great or if it's been disappointing. I thought it's been great, but we were talking about how there were maybe a few more upset or a few more blowouts than we wanted to see. A couple of games maybe didn't live up to the hype. Well, this game surely did live up to the hype. And Zach, no excuse for you, because I also went to go visit some friends at their apartment, and we were we had the game on while we were socializing, so maybe I didn't watch every specific play with my eyes glued to the TV, but damn it, we had the game on. So you know what? Get out of your monk mindset, take a break, get out of the monastery, and get your butt out there and watch TV. No monking today, okay? All right, you got to watch this game tonight.
When your character is at 1 health and you're fighting 2 Sargons and a coral smasher kind of fish creature,
then you throw a magical grenade bomb and toss it up
what?
like that game-winning shot.
What?
All right.
You know what? You're coming to the wrong playing field, pal. Let's slow down a little bit.
Play me in Rocket League, bro.
Hey,
That's what I'm playing these days.
You know what? I might take you up on that sooner rather than later. So just saying.
Hey, you got some friendly rivalry, some friendly competition here between Will and Zach, but we'll have to see. You have to keep us posted on that. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely ranks up there. In one of the good games in the recent memory, in my recent memory. But like Cody mentioned, I think the Archidiacono to Chris Jenkins pass and shot to clinch Villanova their national championship a couple of years ago really stands out to me as kind of a little one ups this a little bit, but not to take away from Jalen Suggs and what he did to help keep, like Cody mentioned, Gonzaga's undefeated season still alive. We'll see how that undefeated season fares against the Baylor Bears and Coach Drew tonight. But again, great shot, great game, and like Cody said, we were really due for a game like that in this tournament itself. But with that being said, we want to thank you for listening to Beyond the Press Box. To stay up to date on content, to even join the debate, like and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Just search Beyond the Press Box and look for our cool red logo. To listen to more great episodes, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on Anchor FM, Spotify, Google Podcast, and Apple Podcast. We're also a proud member of the Unhinged Sports Network. Make sure to go to unhingedsn.com to listen to our podcast and many other great podcasts as well. But we want to thank you for tuning in, and we hope we have a great rest of your week.